Welcome once again to the collaborative game Histories seminar here at the Finnish Museum of Games. My name is Niklas Nylund. I work as a researcher and a curator at the museum, and for our next program we have a very interesting panel hosted by Chair Andreas Lange from FGAMP, dealing with Demoscene as cultural heritage. The floor is yours, Andreas.
Okay, and because you're just coming from lunch, we thought we give you a wake-up input and just start without any explanation the following video. After you have seen some visuals, but of course sound is also a very important part of a demo, or in that case a 64K intro. And so Satu will explain to you what this is, and then we will explain the Demoscene, what this is. Please, Satu, start.
So this specific is it on now?
It should be on.
Open
Yes.
it.
Sorry.
Unscrew it and then press. Oh, it's on. Oh, it's on.
It's on, but now Andreas, your mouth will be quite loud. So. Yes, please continue.
Is it on now?
Oh, no, it's on mute. Yeah, sorry. This is going good. Now, it should be on.
Now, is it on? Yes. Okay. Great. We have at least some sound. Okay, so this was, as Andreas told, 64K intro that was released on Assembly 2006. It was named Chaos Theory, and it was by a Hungarian demo group called Conspiracy. And this is a creation that is kind of a core of a Demoscene. And what is Demoscene? It's a digital culture which revolves around coding, and especially these kind of art pieces that they look kind of like animation. They usually have sound and visuals, but they are not animations. They are made by coding and they run on real time on your computer screen, like a computer program. And there is a group of people that do this and also do the graphics and music and other things that are related to Demoscene, and this is our Demoscene community. And it's a kind of a huge group of friends who are competing against each other and showing their technical skills and kind of like, look what I can do with this, and also kind of creating beautiful art pieces for others to enjoy. So maybe this was some kind of explanation of Demoscene, but we can go further.
Yes, and we decided to combine the introduction round with explaining the Demoscene. And there will be one question I'm asking now everybody of you. All of you have a background in the Demoscene. So the question is, or it's two questions. So how was your entry into the scene, and what is your activity and your role, and what do you like at the scene? And maybe we start at the far left with Gleb, coming from Zurich. Gleb, so how does it start with you and the scene?
Okay, is it on?
It's on.
Oh, okay. So perhaps I should say a few words because my start in the scene has also something to do with a broader aspect that we should talk about. I think, namely that the Demoscene, and I mean its products, like what we have seen here, and the whole intros and demos and so on, is just one aspect of what since at least the mid-80s is called the scene, basically, which in the beginning revolved around removing copy protection from copyrighted and copy-protected software, especially games. So these kids who were removing copy protection from games, they quite quickly decided that they could make a name for themselves by doing that, because these games were spread in like hundreds and thousands of copies all over Europe in schoolyards and computer clubs and so on. So they came up with ways how to fix this achievement, how to make this achievement permanent, and started doing these sorts of real-time computer animations, placing them in front of the copyrighted software. And around it, there evolved a whole infrastructure with communication channels, with bulletin board systems, which is like an early decentralized form of online communication, like before the World Wide Web. So the scene is not just about demos. Like, it was not always just about demos, and it still is not just about demos, even though the demos are, of course, the most like colorful and presentable part of scene activity. I mean, my own scene activity started with bulletin board systems in the mid-90s. I mean, it was quite a usual path for like a computer newbie in the mid-90s. You get a computer, you get a cheap modem, and you start dialing into like shareware and public domain bulletin boards in your tower. And then quite quickly you discover, oh, there is this thing like the scene, which produce demos, which produce text mode graphics like ANSI and ASCII art and so on. And this is kind of where I came in, calling BBSs, trading files on BBSs, drawing text mode art for BBSs, and well, making music for Demoscene productions. And of course, a very important part of Demoscene sociability are the gatherings, the demo parties, or what was called copy parties in the 80s, and then evolved into demo parties in the early 90s, just when the Demoscene kind of started to develop its own path besides this sort of like competition business around cracking copy protection. So yeah, most bigger cities in the 90s in European countries had Demoscene gatherings of different sizes, and so this is also always a very important entrance point for new people coming into the Demoscene. I mean, for me it was the case as well, so I started visiting the Evoke demo party in Cologne, and then entered the organizing team of this demo party. This is something that I'm doing still. Even though nowadays my real life work evolves around the Demoscene as well, because I'm a trained historian and my current university project is around the history of software piracy and the cracking scene in the 1980s and early 90s. Okay, I think I already talked a bit too much probably, so I'd like to pass the mic on to you.
Okay. Hello everybody. My name is Tommi Musturi. In the Demoscene, rarely known as Electric of Extend. And my roots with the Demoscene, they go back to mid-80s. I can tell a little bit about the background. I'm from the countryside nearby Tampere, from Juupajoki. It's like a really small village where I'm from, and of course there was not so much to do there. And 85, I think it was like I got my first computer, and at the same time, I think tens of thousands of Finnish boys especially got their first computers as Christmas presents. Actually, my first computer was Spectrum Video 328, but after 2 weeks I started to complain to my parents that I wanted the C64, Commodore 64, because all my friends got that machine. And yeah, so everybody who has used C64, they know that basically when you turn on the computer, you get a blue screen, and you have to do something to like tell the machine to load the game or load something else. So you go inside the sort of coding in a way that you have to tell the machine commands to get it on and working. And so we had this school class with 5 boys. Everybody got the machines at the same time. And first of all, we were gamers. We played games and copied them on the schoolyard. But soon there's a computer club in the small village led by some older guys who actually were already involved with the Demoscene there. They were like 13 and we were like 10 years old. So anyway, through that club we saw the first demos. And of course we were copying games, so we saw these intros in front of the cracked games. And as Gleb told, everybody in the Demoscene, they had their nicknames and their group names. And that comes from the illegal side of the scene back then, because people were cracking games, so they used these like fake names, not their real names, because that way they couldn't get caught by the police. So I wasn't cracking, but I ended up with Tommi Soft as my first nick for the Demoscene. And in that computer club we started to program a little, and I was into drawing, so I started to make some fonts and logos, and my friend did the same, and so we had a small group of 5 guys in the same class doing some more small demos. And then I continued, and the group kind of grew larger, and we went to some first demo parties, copy parties back then, like late 80s. Then we ended up actually being part of the first assembly parties in Helsinki, like actually in Kaunia and 92, I think. And we were responsible for the C64 demo competitions and all that. And yeah, and back then our group was already like 20 people from all around Finland, some from Sweden, and we were traveling to parties in Sweden and Denmark and meeting the people there. And this is of course like age before internet, so we were spreading the demos and games through normal mail. So I was also doing this swapping. I was a swapper, and of course we had separate people are responsible for this more.
Maybe you can explain a little bit what swapping means?
Swapping meant swapper is the guy who spread the new product release through normal mail. So when we got the new demo out, he sent like 100 floppy disks around to Europe.
Because the World Wide Web hasn't been introduced until then.
Yeah, and this was really important that you should act really fast, because the newer the material you send was, the more cooler swapper you were actually. So anyway, so I was in contact with 40 people around Europe, mostly in Scandinavia. After that, because the floppy disks, they need a kind of like protection, like disk cover. I started also drawing the disk covers, or like decorating the disk covers for the specific demos. And soon there was some other groups asking for if I could draw something for them, and some magazines that were spread on floppy disks as well. They asked graphics, and I started to draw more on paper actually after that. So I learned first to draw on computer with really lousy like software, and then on paper. And later I went to study graphic design, and this drawing on paper became my actual job. So, but I tried my skills on Amiga and PC scene as well a bit, but I wasn't really happy with the results, so I stuck with Commodore 64, and I'm still doing that. I had a break of maybe 5 years, like early 2000. I was really not happy how the scene was at that time, because you know the Demoscene with the roots are with kids and like teenagers, and mainly boys. So this kind of influenced the visuals on all the like kind of atmosphere in a way, and I wasn't really. I went to art school, and I wasn't really anymore into that. And luckily these days the Demoscene is quite different, because people are more mature in a way. So, but these days I'm involved with the Demoscene maybe more than ever. I've been part of the Chu party, demo party. That's only like the C64 party. It was actually held 2 weeks ago here in nearby Tampere. And Chu party organization, we organized this party, but we also have like a wider perspective on Demoscene, that we want to get new people inside this kind of, still kind of like small circle of people, old sceners. And we organize clubs and publish music and some other things.
Okay. I think we will come also to this, what the future might be for the Demoscene in the second part. But now it's up to Satu. So obviously you are not a veteran like Tommi, and you're also female. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. So what is your experience with the scene?
In this group, I think I'm the newcomer, even though I've been in Demoscene like 15 years. But yeah, I came to the Demoscene when one of my friends asked me, do I want to do some graphics for their demos? And I did a little bit of graphics and started going to parties, and I just fell in love. I love how creative the people are, and even though I've coded a little bit, but very little, and I seriously don't always understand how these things are made. And it's astonishing what people can do with old machines, and even do take some machine that shouldn't do this thing and then make and do something that it wasn't supposed to. So I love the creativity and the atmosphere. Right now I'm very active in Demoscene. I'm organizing parties, doing videos and kind of like different projects and also graphics. But my social circles are mostly in Demoscene. So I'm really into this culture and this, as Gleb said, the social aspects that are around the Demoscene. And I think this is something that we cannot just take the demos, and this is very important for Demoscene. It's basically its culture, it's what is around demos.
Thank you very much. And now, please, it's up to you, Jari.
Okay. So my name is Jari Myllylahti, and the reason why I'm here as well is I was part of the Demoscene in really somewhere mid-80s up to early 90s. And we had a group of friends who formed actually the Amiga group that's named Clones, and as Mr. Grendel on the back row knows, no one knew the faces for the guys back then, so pretty much now I give a face to the group as well. So it was kind of 4 guys in the really small village in the southern part of Finland near town Salo, where we put up the group, and it started as well with the guys stated that with crack intros, what was on the productions as well. So we looked onto those while we swapped as well software for 64 and Amiga. But then we ended up on doing things differently and trying to do a social network out of the setup, which is actually part of the culture currently. And in the 80s and 90s, it was not that easy because we didn't have even the BBSs back then, you know, in general public. So it was all around getting the contact details on the demos and intros, contacting the guys in Sweden, Germany, wherever it could be, and having fun with the guys and exchanging ideas and trying to code things differently. And from that perspective, what we established is that for me personally, it's all about the friendships and the culture and the networks and nothing else. And it's not about the, you know, finishing a gigantic demo or piece of art or work or whatever it could be. It's just having fun with the friends around the scene. And for me personally, I'm a hard coder, so I enjoy finishing things of small computers. What pretty much you try to think on what you should finish in coding and how can I make this happen. And this is still at my core of heart. So I still have my Amigas. I bought myself my very first Commodore 64 this year, and I'm looking into coding on that as well. And I still have my MSX as well. So it's, even though Tommi sold his 386, I still have my 786, or 788. So that's one of the best computers I've ever had. And then for me personally, it's, you know, friendships and these kind of things. And it's a culture that you live and breathe, and you try to figure out what you do with that. Professional life is aside, so this is on the dark side of it.
But it has some connections, of course.
Yes, it has some connections, of course. I run into people on Demoscene all the time on professional life as well. So you connect with people and names that you even didn't realize that they used to know like 25 years back.
So it's a kind of a hidden secret network spread all over the world, but maybe we can give that network a little bit more visibility. Let me come to that later. Only briefly, maybe I introduce myself. I'm Andreas Lange. I'm working at the European Federation of Game Archives, Museums and AFGA and Preservation Project. So it's the Association of European Game Museums, and the Finnish Museum of Games is one of our members. And AFGA became the coordinator of the international application process, and you will understand that later, what that means. I don't personally have a background in the Demoscene. And maybe I add to what you all said and hopefully give you an idea, even about the diversity of the scene, that it's strictly non-profit. I think that's a very important rule somehow, which is also for your identity important. We decided now to have a first Q&A round only dedicated to questions of understanding for the Demoscene. There will be a second one after our second part. So please, if you have questions to understand the Demoscene, it's now the time to raise it. There are no questions. That's of course great that you have explained that very well, or you have very familiar audience with the Demoscene. So now then let's come to the second part, and this is the idea to apply for becoming UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity. And this is one of the lists the UNESCO is providing. There's the tangible, better known list, where you have tangible artifacts like castles and also some nature things. But since 2003 there is a new heritage list, and that's the one for intangible heritage. And this is very interesting because this list and this definition of intangible heritage offers a lot of connecting points for digital culture, and that somehow is the bigger context of the application, that it will become the first application of born digital culture to be accepted as UNESCO heritage of humanity. And so we will come up to this later, but first we start with a video of Lena. Lena, I tell you her name correctly, and hopefully now the sound will work with this, because this video, it's here you can see it's Lena Mariso from the Finnish Heritage Agency, and she is responsible for managing these application processes for Finland, for the national level. And oh, it's really a pity, because it's a really nice video. And I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do here on this side. The sound is on, so there is some kind of weird problem somewhere.
Maybe we can do it that way here. Let's have a look. Give me the mic.
6 years ago. So since then, the Finnish Heritage Agency has been working on the convention.
Can you level up?
So far, 170 countries have ratified the convention.
I have to mute. I'll take this one.
Different parts of the world.
Mute that.
You're there.
Okay,
In today's seminar, you are discussing about the. Hello there at the Finnish Museum of Games. My name is Leena Marsio, and I work as a senior advisor here in the Finnish Heritage Agency. Sorry that I cannot be there with you today in your panel discussion and workshop, but instead I decided to send you this greeting. I'm coordinating the Convention on the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. The convention is quite new. It came around in 2003, and Finland ratified the convention 6 years ago. So since then, the Finnish Heritage Agency has been working on the convention. So far, 170 countries have ratified the convention, which shows how important thing living heritage and its safeguarding has been felt to be in different parts of the world. You're there in today's seminar. You are discussing about the inscription of Demoscene to the Intangible Cultural Heritage List of UNESCO. We appreciate this, and we think it's quite nice that we have new areas inside the convention, so that it's not only dancing, singing, games, food, or relationship to nature, but instead we can have some new questions and new fields of living heritage we can discuss and further our cooperation. Well, the first step in the process is that all of the Demoscene activities in different countries participating in this initiative need to be in the national inventory. Here in Finland, we opened the Wiki inventory for living heritage 3 years ago, and so far we have over 150 elements from over 220 communities in this inventory. Every second year it's possible to apply to the national inventory, and it is this year, December, that is the next time. So the next move here in Finland is to write a very good application or an article to the Wiki inventory and also to the national inventory. When thinking about the multinational nomination or any nomination to UNESCO, I think the key thing is cooperation. All of the communities that are working with the element, they need to be part of the process. These are multi-year processes where different kind of actors need to come together and to discuss especially safeguarding, which for me is the key point in the fight to the UNESCO, or also actually a key point of any kind of living heritage element. So I hope to hear from you also when you're applying to the national inventory, how you are safeguarding and how you see the future of this element. How will the community in question safeguard it, and then also the state, which is a crucial part in the nomination file. At the moment we know about a handful of other initiatives in the field that are interested in multinational applications. We don't have any specific dates for those in Finland, we rather follow them up, what is happening in the field and how are they developing, and then when the file or the situation with the cooperation is mature enough, then we will make the decisions here in the Finnish Heritage Agency, and also including the advisory board of intangible cultural heritage, and then the decision will lastly be made here in Finland by the Ministry of Education and Culture. So I wish you good luck with your initiative and have a good day there in Tampere. Bye.
She had explained some of the procedure. I will add this some other aspects that you get a clear picture. And by the way, this is the campaign homepage, and there's also a hashtag. It's Art of Coding. If you want to support us, please use it. It's important to reach as many people as possible. And what I wanted to explain is a little bit more the procedure the UNESCO is offering. So the first step is to become listed in the national inventories and be accepted as a national ICH. ICH means Intangible Cultural Heritage, so it's a little bit shorter. And not only here in Finland, there are applications are initiated, but also in Germany will be an application submitted only this month. We hope that even in other countries where the Demoscene is strong, also application initiatives are started. And then the second step is, after these national applications hopefully have succeeded, that these countries who has listed the Demoscene on their national list can decide to nominate the Demoscene for the international listing. And this is something we are claiming from the beginning, because the Demoscene is an international culture, so it makes no sense to put it only at national lists. And it's also representing very much a European cultural thing, because there are also demoscenes and demo parties in other parts of the world abroad of Europe, but nowhere it has developed so sustainably like in Europe. So it's a very European culture as well. And so this is something I wanted to add to what Lena just explained to us. And of course it's very important for us to see the openness of Finland to even nominate the Demoscene, after, of course, the application has to be granted on the national level, for the international level. And this is the next important step, but for the moment we are going for the national levels. And now, of course, it's very important for us to understand why this application is important for the scene. And now I want to ask you again. And of course, also, we want to understand if there are concerns about it, because it is the firstborn digital culture who wants to become accepted by such a traditional heritage label. There are some conflicts, maybe. And now we start with Jari. Where's Mike? And so Jari, what do you think about this initiative, Art of Coding?
I think it's one of the key elements on doing this to preserve the culture as such, because I think it's a living culture still, even though it's evolved, and which is I don't think it's going to be denied anyway by the ICH anyway. So I think it's an evolving culture, and I think it's important part of the subculture, if you want to call that. And of course, drawbacks being, there are parts that people don't tend to think to put on public and then visible as well. Like some of the groups or people tend to think they don't want to be visible, even they just want to be handled by their handlers. And I think the key part is to keep it alive, give it an official status as well, because it is a good culture. It's a subculture and it's an electronic one. So I think it has a long roots on the history as well. So in my perspective and eyes, it should be preserved.
All right. Thanks very much then, Satu. So what do you think about UNESCO becoming UNESCO heritage?
Well, first of all, I think that the Demoscene, as you heard, how it has progressed through time, it kind of tells a story about how our digital changes have happened in our society and how it changed a lot of things and how we do things. So I think that is one of the points. But also, why I think it's important that we get this status is we are a culture that is changing quite a lot, and there is quite interesting aspects. And there is a lot of tangible material, like with the God Papers project. And there is also a lot of demos that are archived, and there is a lot of material that is archived. But there is, I think, very little research done yet. And at least I think it would be very interesting to see the kind of a timeline how demo parties progressed, what kind of compose game and when and how. And also here a lot of, well, most of the demos are preserved, but not the stories behind them. And this would be also very interesting if there would be more archiving of this information, that why did this group make this specific demo at this time?
Yeah.
Because there is usually a story behind it. But of course, when you said that there is doubts, and one of the doubts that I've heard is that people are afraid that when we are getting the common knowledge, there will be a lot of new people coming and interested. And because we've been such a tight-knit group that when you go to a demo party, it's very safe environment. It's kind of like self-regulating. So it's kind of like if you're an asshole, nobody will not talk to you and you're out. So it's kind of people are afraid that we will attract those not so nice people. But for me, the Demosceners are getting older, and also I think there is more people maybe slowly getting out than coming in. And I think we need new blood, and we need to open our hearts and our community and be open for new participants.
Yeah, thanks very much for also these insights. And Tommi, so what are you thinking about becoming UNESCO Heritage of Humanity? With your Demoscene background, not with your comics, but maybe it's all very similar.
Yeah, well, there's a connection in my comics and for projects, but it's not here. I can talk about that. But yeah, of course, for me, it's kind of the whole project. I think it's, of course, it's about digital history, history of the software, history of the scene itself, and as its own underground culture. And I would state that it started as an underground. It didn't last like maybe late 90s that there was started to be the first documentaries like on TV here in Finland and in other countries, some books, some exhibitions and things like that that gathered and showed this culture to bigger audience. But the background really is in the underground. And a lot of people want to keep it underground, and that's kind of like the doubt here that you get from the scene. But I think that's really the minority. And this kind of thinking, of course, comes from the fact that for many people, this Demoscene has been for all their lives, it's been their like main area where they express themselves. They really feel it like they have a second home, and they feel in a way that somebody comes from outside the scene and tells them, okay, we do this and this. It feels like it's not the purpose of the scene itself, it's the community. It's there. But as Satu said, that I think like the research on this material that's been actually quite well gathered. For example, because of the Lange there in the corner, they're maybe digitizing some demos at the moment, 80s or something. But there's no research almost at all. And this is kind of the interesting thing, because there's so much material that's interesting in the widest perspective. Because Demoscene influenced games naturally. Because Demoscene people, they went doing games. And it also influenced music, scene dance music, for example, techno, later, during the 90s, for example. And then graphics, so graphics became one kind of like trend in the design as well. But when we go with coding, as a graphic artist, I like to express myself through different medias outside Demoscene. And also, like, I publish my graphics in other platforms and books as well. And for music artists, they can, of course, do music, make a CD or put it in Spotify or something, and get audience that way. But with the coder, he's still inside the scene, in a way. And that's why I think I like the name that it's art of coding. And demos really are coders part of the scene. In a way, I always feel when I'm doing projects for demos that I'm like helping the coder make the visuals, and the actual product is the main coders.
One question. So you just make us aware that there was already changes going on from an underground scene towards more as an established culture, like with documentaries. And am I right that even these developments in the past also caused some discussions and fears within the scene, or was it until now a very consistent thing and community and art of coding will trigger something completely new, or will it just push a little bit what's already went on in the last years within the scene? what you said, coming from subculture, developing towards new directions. So.
Yeah. To understand the Demoscene, you have to know that until like mid-90s it was kind of like really tight community of with all the machines included in the same parties, like C64, Amiga, PC demos, were shown at the same parties. But after that, there started to be like division, like that we had like strictly 8-bit computer parties, and then there was PC parties that only showed PC demos. And for a long time it was kind of like divided. And for example, me, I went with the 8-bit stuff. So I wasn't really connected with these categories anymore. And so, but like, for example, assembly, Satu works with as well. It started as a strictly demo party, like in the early 90s. And if you played games there, it was like, no. Somebody came to tell me that you should play games, you should do demos and resolution. So, but like early 2000 it was already like mostly games. But now, Assembly has done, like for the past year, a lot of good job at presenting demos on the national TV, at the National Broadcasting Company, and things like that. So basically, like for example, Assembly went back to demos after the while with only, or mostly like games. So it's kind of a tricky story. There was a moment like late 90s when it was kind of like a boom that Pelimuseo in Helsinki, for example, they wanted to show demos there, and they went to like national museums and what, and there was interest in there. Yeah. But to understand the whole scene, you have to also like understand different parts and segments there.
All right. So thank you very much. Then, Gleb, please. What is your opinion about that, and which advantages do you see potentially coming to the scene from that application?
Well, I'm a bit like I have a bit of a double role here, because on the one hand I'm a researcher who is researching 1980s, early 90s home computer history. On the other hand, of course, I'm a Demoscene. So like I am inside myself a bit split on this issue actually. And perhaps we should talk about two areas where this whole UNESCO thing might or might not benefit the scene and its heritage. On the one hand, there is the history of the scene. And I mean, looking at not just at the history of technology or the history of youth cultures, but looking at cultural and social history of the 80s and early 90s, the scene, like not just the Demoscene, but this whole cultural complex of like cracking games, producing intros, producing demos, and so on. It's very important if you do like an overarching cultural history of the 1980s and early 90s, because it's not just one of several digital subcultures, like among cultures such as hacking or I don't know, games modding and so on. But this is actually the first mass culture, while hackers in the 80s were a pretty elite group actually, even though they were very often in the media and so on, at least in Germany. But the scene, it was really a mass phenomenon. I remember reading an interview with a Swedish scene veteran who was recalling that just in his school there were like 10 different cracking groups active in one school. So it was really a mass phenomenon that mattered a lot for many people, for a whole generation actually, in the 80s and early 90s. And this this aspect of history should be included in general histories of our time, in general histories of the 80s and early 90s. And I mean, the 80s in general, politically and culturally, are really like a crucial point in history that shapes our future, our present now, and our politics now, or the mess that we are in. We have to actually look at the 80s to understand a lot of it. So cultural phenomena of the 80s are extremely important as well. So why I'm saying this, if the Demoscene, as like the most visible part of the scene, gets UNESCO recognition as intangible cultural heritage, of course, for us as historians, conservationists, museum officials, and so on. It will be much easier for us to argument for better resources and better funding in order to preserve this really important part of 1980s, 1990s culture. I mean, everyone who has done research or any sort of outreach work relating to the Demoscene, and actually it's not the case that there is very little research. There is a lot of research done, but it could be more. But everyone who has been involved in that kind of research, it's always a bit annoying that, like, you write a research paper on some scene-related topic, and then first you have to explain on the first like 5 pages what is the scene or what is the Demoscene. Of course, a bit of attention towards the Demoscene in form of this recognition by the UNESCO would save us in the long run, would save us this sort of problem. And of course, one needs far more resources to conduct oral history interviews, to do digital preservation projects, and so on and so forth. So, in order to preserve the history of our culture and of this really important 1980s, 1990s phenomenon, this would be brilliant, and this could really give a push into new preservation projects, new research projects, and so on. As for the current Demoscene, I mean, of course there would be quite a lot of advantages, like new people. It would attract new people. Getting new generation interested in the Demoscene has always been a problem for the past like 15 years or so, because it's very hard to explain to people nowadays, like, for whom size of data doesn't matter. Like, why should you actually do real-time coding and real-time graphics in a limited size? Like, if you can stream whole films over the internet without even noticing how big this data is, why should you bother doing these tiny things? And to understand and to appreciate that fully, basically you have to have been grown up in an age where floppy disks were the measurement of the data that you deal with. If we find like new ways to attract people to the Demoscene, and actually these new ways are slowly being found right now, for example, through the Shader Showdown competition, these like live coding competitions that are a steady part of demo parties for the past few years. So there is already something happening that attracts a new generation to the Demoscene, but if there can be done more of that, of course it would be great. And I don't think we should be afraid of an influx of people. On the other hand, of course, I guess many people would have a problem with, or like would be afraid of losing this sort of like spirit of informality that governs the scene. Yeah, there are not many like official structures, and there is a pretty much like a laissez-faire attitude, considering many things, like how things are done in the Demoscene. Yeah, and of course, new attention to the Demoscene could also lead to a stronger institutionalization and stronger reglementation of like Demoscene everyday practices. So, yeah, I guess there are many opinions about that.
Thanks very much. And looking to the time, it's some minutes left, so I want to give you the opportunity to raise some questions. Yes, there's one.
As to this like perceived lack of research on the Demoscene, me and Gleb and Andreas, we've been collecting this bibliography of related publications since 2004, so it's been quite a while already. You can find it online with the title Demoscene Research, and currently there's 4 doctoral theses, at least like 10 master theses, some tens of research papers, so it's not like unheard of that there would be some academic research on the Demoscene as well. What I wouldn't say there's So you cannot say that there's not much research, but there's little in-depth research. That's my own current perception on it. So this is like all sorts of like introductions to Demoscene published over and over again in academic contexts, but hardly ever there has been much like going beyond that, like going deeper into like individual subjects. We have these like general introductions all over again, and they serve their purpose if like people get to know the topic, but really it's like in-depth research is missing.
Okay, thanks very much for that comment. Other questions and comments?
Thank you, Niklas and Maria. So I'm just gonna make this argument, and you can take me apart then. But so what is the thing that is sort of, or is there something that I'm not seeing right now that is like forward-looking and is saying something more sort of about digital media and digitality for right now or for the future that comes out of these sort of reflections on the Demoscene and that particular kind of digital making that you would see in the horizon as something that would make it interesting and relevant for all of us to learn more about and preserve the Demoscene?
Whom of you wants to answer this question?
Well, one thing that kind of like interests me personally is the idea of optimized coding, optimized graphics for music as ecological thing.
And do you think that this could a contribution from the scene to the wider society, that you care for code, which of course, and for algorithms, which of course become more and more important for our whole society in every parts of our life? Is that it kind of caring for efficiency and this? Do you think that could become something the others could learn from the scene?
Well, I'm
not wasting resources, but really.
Well, consuming is consuming. So if you consume data products, that's consuming. But if you consume data, enormous loads of data, that's consuming as well. But I'm not saying that when I do 64 graphics, I'm being ecological. But as an example, it could be something that's been forgotten as told in coding, for example, not in all the fields, but.
Yeah, maybe for the coding I could comment that, for me the Demoscene is all about the art of coding as such. So it's all about understanding how you make efficient code, how you do things. And I think on the newest part, I've been there like 20 years ago, and the other guys have been starting after that. So it changed and evolved into a different setup with large amounts of memory and space to store the things. And I think that even though the Commodore 64 and the 8-bit era is still living, I think we should have more focus on the actual precise point of art of coding, how we did things back then with the really small machines.
Gleb, you also wanted to answer?
Just a tiny remark on that.
Yeah.
I mean, already from a historical perspective, no matter what we can learn from the Demoscene for like today and for the future, I guess this is what you were asking me about, like what is forward thinking about it. Some aspects have been mentioned and I agree with them, but already the impact the Demoscene did for digitization and for home computerization in the 80s and early 90s, this alone already makes like the scene deserve this sort of recognition as a really crucial part of the history of computerization of Europe.
But maybe I can add something. Yes, that's right, but the definition of ICH is very much about living cultures, and living cultures are of course cultures which are still developing and will develop.
Yeah, of course.
And the Demoscene is one of the very few born digital cultures who managed to survive so many technical changes and showed their ability to adapt their cultural practice to the new technical context. And that makes it, in my opinion, so strong as an example for a born digital culture, even for other communities. You don't find, in my opinion, that many cultures which had proven that ability and which has proven this living power. And so, in my opinion, you shouldn't be anxious about further developments, which of course must happen because technology, and you are depending on technology, is still changing very, very dynamically.
And just one thing, the Demoscene is probably the first born digital culture that already has succeeded passing on the torch to literally the next generation, because currently there are already children of Demosceners being active in producing material for demos, or actually the whole demos themselves. And this is quite extraordinary actually for a digital culture.
Yeah, I was just thinking that also, as you said, we are a kind of a living, breathing thing. We are evolving all the time, and Demoscene is not something that is going to stay static, and we're not going to stay in this state that we are now. We have changed throughout the time quite a lot and evolved, and we are still evolving and changing, and it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. But definitely the changes in the technology will give new opportunities to show the talent and creativity of the people. But it's something that why also we should get this status now, is that we can record this stage that we are now and like document how we are organizing parties at this point.
One last question I regret, and maybe because you have already raised one, please ask your question.
Also, a little remark to the other question, that scene has been dead since 80s and long live the scene. But there has been also some concerns about when you get the status of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage. There might be money involved on things, and money changes stuff. So this is a concern that I've heard from other people. So what happens if people start to, or institutions start to pay for certain groups to do art for them? How does that change Demoscene? Does it change Demoscene, and what is your take on that?
Maybe before you answer, a short fact that the UNESCO definition of ICH is strictly only for non-profit cultures. It's not allowed that anybody, any culture who is connected with commercial things is applying, or they can apply, but it would not be granted. So that's a must from the UNESCO. But of course, higher visibility could lead to an issue like that, and maybe one last answer from you. Okay, yeah.
I don't believe it changes that actually, because the scene is the scene from my perspective. That is, so I would disagree with money changing the setup.
All right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't see this really coming an issue. I think it might be that there is more official pressure to for official museums and kind of people to document and preserve, but I don't see that it's gonna affect that people are getting paid or getting money from the demos.
Okay, I just got the permission for one really last question. Please.
Just say a tiny remark to that. From a historical perspective, this will be nothing new, because so-called commercial demos have been around since the early 90s. So demo groups have been commissioned to code demos for commercial purposes all the time, and actually now the scene is far less commercial than it used to be at some point in the early 90s. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. I didn't mean to struggle to get you to sort of defend that you should preserve Demoscene. Like, I think this is super interesting. I'm 35 years old. I'm a digital media researcher, and I learned about Demoscene yesterday. So yeah, and you can roll your eyes at that, and you're probably right.
I'm not rolling my eyes.
But the thing is that this would have been like when I'm struggling to make the argument elsewhere that digital games and digital games preservation should be focusing more on what people do than what companies do, because digital is about making and culture is about making, then I think that you have an argument there that is basically, or somebody, there's already the ball in front of your feet. You just need to score the goal. Like, you're just giving me all these missing links in a like 1.5 hour talk about the connection between hacking and making culture and what digitality and digital media looks like today, that I didn't know about, that I'm assuming most people don't know about, and that make all these arguments about that this doesn't need to be about huge companies that push DRM up your ass until you can't breathe anymore, because that's not how we make digital stuff. You make digital stuff, you make it differently, fuck those guys. So that would be my argument. So I'm just asking, do you think that's weird?
No, I think that's a perfect statement to finish our panel. I thank you very much for that closing statement, and of course, thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, big hand of applause to the panel.